Hello, my name is Amy Anay, and this is the story of the murder of my uncle Gennadiy by the Russian police and by their so-called judges, by their public. My uncle's name is Gennadiy. I want the whole Russian public and the Russian police to learn his name, not to forget. Somebody once told me not to forgive and not to forget. And forgiveness is a totally relevant thing. I will never forgive anything. What does the word even mean? Really, what does it mean to forgive? The word and the concept in it are ridiculous to me. And I have a very, very good memory. They'll last longer than my existence. My uncle was born with an anatomic brain disorder of extreme extent. My grandparents on my mother's side were both heavily drunk when my grandmother on my mother's side got pregnant. The intoxication probably caused their son, my uncle Gennadiy, to be born with extreme and incurable mental disability. There was physical, because his physical brain was badly and irreparably injured. He was a disabled person since birth. By account of my mother, his sister, he could look at the clock as an adult already, but he wouldn't be able to tell what the time was. He was a very hard-working person, and he was willing to help absolutely anyone. He did physically hard, exhausting jobs for anyone who'd ask him. The Russian police accused him of having murdered somebody. My uncle had no lawyer. He was not offered one. And my uncle had no fair process. The policeman who accused him confiscated his property, my uncle's apartment. It was my uncle's property. Neither my grandmother, who was then alive, nor my mother, his sister, were given that apartment as property, but it went to that specific policeman who accused him, who was interested by that money to put my uncle in the worst jail they could find, far away from where my grandmother lived, and far away from yet another city where my mother lived. The fact that my uncle had extensive brain damage, it was anatomic and since birth, that he was basically completely helpless and unable for any self-defense, did not prevent the Russian police and judge, so-called, from alleging him guilty of murder of first degree. Confiscating his apartment, which was his property, my uncle's property, and giving it over to that same policeman, making it his property now, and putting my uncle in a terrible jail in the middle of nowhere where tuberculosis, TB, was epidemic. Then the prison staff made my uncle Gennadiy do the worst job there that nobody else wanted. They made him clean the prison showers on everyday basis, which was the environment to get infected with tuberculosis, with the raging TB. My uncle was physically exhausted, starved, and exposed to TB in moisture and water vapors as he was cleaning out their dirt. He got infected and died terribly and painfully. without having access to normal anti-TB medication or to any resources at all. They murdered my uncle. Years later, when I was an adult applying for asylum in Brazil, a Russian speaker said, quoting, "They didn't kill her uncle. He died of tuberculosis, but she used the word sdokh, the Russian word sdokh, which is a very badly derogative, highly insulting, humiliating word for died that one can use for a hated dog, maybe if one is a hateful person themselves, yeah, not a person. Or that somebody used for some bad enemy to whom one would wish death very badly and whose death they would cheer. She used the worst word that exists for as a connotation of the word die, yeah? Oh God. Years later again, after I applied for asylum in the US and spent years in a terrible immigration jail there, a separate story about this, yeah? Undergoing intense physical torture that I will be delighted to tell you guys about in every detail, or to tell anybody about in every detail, if I'm ever asked to do that. And after I spent about 2 years of my life there, I was scared they will kill me after all the torture I endured. And after I finally got the deportation that I was begging about for a while at that point, because I was dying in a concrete cell that those American sadists regularly filled with corrosive chemicals, left me there suffocating, and enjoyed watching me crying and yelling through the glass window. Crying because the chemical vapors were that corrosive and extreme, causing suffocation, and automatic tears. Simply as one of many, many types of physical torture I endured in that prison. I'm not talking about mental torture, social torture, mock executions, everything I suffered there. It's too much to tell, really. I don't want to touch on that topic now, yeah? So, after I was deported, when I was being deported of my own begging for that, the Americans there did say laughingly that the Russians say they will call me Gennadiy in Russia. And indeed, when I was back to Russia, they called me that. Not frequently, not regularly, but they did. Geny means genius in Russia. The short name for my uncle's name, who they stole from and who they murdered in torture, who was unable to ever defend himself due to the extensive and extreme anatomic brain damage he had since birth. It was irreparable and not his fault. So his short name was Gena, and his full name was Gennadiy. They were insulting my uncle, and they were insulting me. I was a small child when my uncle got murdered. I do remember waking up at night when somebody called my mother in the middle of the night, I think. And I could hear the whole loud conversation in the corridor next to the room that I slept in. It's my uncle and I, with whatever brain problems that he and I respectively have or had, who are deserving, decent, intelligent, clever people. humans, not those who murder, not those who torture, not those who called my uncle those words, not those criminals, thieves, and murderers. They are devils, and my uncle and I deserve and decent, good, clever people. I'm very proud of my uncle and of myself. I also remember the only time that I ever met my uncle that I remember. We were at my mother's country house that she still owns. He tore a bright red, beautiful, amazingly bright and beautiful lily flower, and he gave it to me as a present. He rode me on a bicycle. He airlifted me, a small girl then, and he circled me in the air around himself. It was the first time that someone lifted me in the air like that, as if making me fly. My uncle Gennadiy is with me forever, always. I love him, he loves me, I know he supports me from wherever he is. He made me fly, and he's with me.